Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started. All right, here we are with Heather Prall. How are you doing, Heather?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing fabulous.
Awesome.
I never say fabulous, but I threw it out for you.
Nice. I like it.
Here we are on a Friday. Hope you had a good week. I wanted to start off by asking you, as I've been asking quite a few people, because this thing seems to be going on and on, how have you been doing? How's your art been doing during the virus, which will not be named?
Yeah. Honestly, surprisingly well.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Business has been great. And I've been enjoying some of the quiet time, and it's been an opportunity to really just kind of take a step back from the crazy routine and some of the day-to-day things that you tend to get wrapped up in and not really think about, and just take a step back and reevaluate priorities and take a breather to some extent.
Yes. It has forced us to refocus on certain things that we kind of weren't focusing on before with all the madness of everyday life. Now that you're kind of stuck at home, sometimes it makes you zero in on certain things that you haven't been zeroing in on before. But right now, I'm actually busier than ever. So for me, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I went a little bit to the other extreme. So it's just kind of recalibrating.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just, kind of figuring out a new path, and things are definitely still busy, but in a different way. And I feel like it's more of a, I don't know if I'd say it's more of a controlled or a selective way versus sort of just going through the motions before. And
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it forces us to kind of be more selective with what we're doing and more present with what we're doing, I think, which is kind of a silver lining. But I wanted to say Heather is an abstract painter. I love your work. I want you to describe it for us before I gush about it. But we also met through Get the Gallery, and you are the chief curator there, right? And co-founder?
Right, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've corresponded via email, and then we had a very nice half-hour conversation one time on the phone. And I actually didn't know for a long time that you were such a good artist also. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised to find that out. But if you could just describe your art a little bit for us.
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I started painting, I started working just with hard body acrylics, and all of my work is abstract artwork, which I love. And so, just kind of working through, trying different things. I started painting with fluid acrylics, which is really kind of fun and interesting and unique. And I know it's something that's become, more popular as of recent. And I believe you work with fluid acrylics as well, correct?
I have a little subcategory that I work with fluids, and it's a lot of fun. The thing that I found is there's a lot of fluid acrylic artists out there, but there's only a small percentage of them that are really talented. So, because it's it's an easy way to kind of start and just, I'm painting. But I think, you can tell the people who've kind of mastered the medium a little bit. And I really like your work. So sorry, keep going.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and I agree with that too. So really my artwork conveys emotion through movement and color. And again, just I enjoy abstract artwork. I feel like abstract is really unique in that, each person that's looking at an artwork will see something different and kind of connect in their own way, depending on, their own personal experiences.
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I was kind of combing through your website a little bit, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the kind of contrast between some of your more bright abstract works and some of the neutrals. I like a lot of the neutral pieces. I like all of them, but I was really digging those today. And your kind of use of negative space is very interesting too. You get these pops of color, and also with the neutrals, the separation of kind of the movement of the paint, and then the negative space, like the negative white space. A lot of times, it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. My work is really just sort of an evolution. And I think you can see that, just as time goes on. And I did a large body of work at the beginning of this year for a big art showing that I had that didn't go so well due to COVID because it, obviously, things got redirected because of that. But even just the work, that I've done this year, there's an evolution that's happened. And I feel like every time I go into the studio, I don't really have a recipe or a formula that I go in with. It's kind of just playing every time and trying something different, and really just enjoying the creative process versus, going in and just kind of repeating the same steps.
That's nice. Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes artists can get bogged down in the process a little bit, and it's very freeing to just be, to be able to go in there new with a blank slate, a blank canvas, and just be creative. I mean, that's why we all got started in the first place, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because I think that, a lot of artists definitely have a definitive style, which is fantastic. And, some people are drawn to that and sort of, I think, have an expectation that artists have that. And I've had people say to me, well, what's your niche, or what's your style? Or, don't you feel like you have to pick one thing? And honestly, that kills it for me.
I completely agree.
I want to be able to continue to evolve, and that's how I am kind of with everything that I do, not just in my art, but just as a person. I want to be able to continue to experiment and evolve and, continue to grow. Yeah.
And also it's being true to yourself, right? If you're putting these limitations on, I have to stay within this little box, right, then it does kill your creativity.
Right.
I've probably bored people to death. I've talked about this so many times with my shifts in styles from like dark pop surrealism to abstract. And it just was a natural evolution. It was something that I have been wanting to do for a long time, and I made the switch, and it felt great. And now I still love playing too. So it's nice to hear you say that. I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, maybe a lot of it, because I know we corresponded, and you have a very fascinating origin story. And I was wondering if you could just kind of start us off with the origin story, how you evolved as both a human being and as an artist. And I think I'll probably be stopping you from time to time, because I know there's so much in there that I don't want to lose my train of thought, but we'll just put a little pin in it, and we'll come back to your origin story once we get into each little topic. But start us off if you can. Yeah, the origin of Heather Prall.
Yeah, for sure. And feel free to kind of, guide and ask questions. And if there's something that I've missed or forgotten, definitely let me know. But yeah. So I was born here in Denver, Colorado. I'm a native, and very interesting start for me. I was born to a 15-year-old mother and a 17-year-old father. So very, very young parents who obviously were not anticipating, having children at that point in their lives. And so the intention was actually for them to keep me and raise me. And so I went home with my birth mother, and she didn't have a lot of support from her family. In fact, they had highly discouraged her from even going through with the pregnancy. And so she was 15 years old. She didn't have a job. She didn't have a car. She's still in school. And it got to a point where it was, obviously it was too much for a 15-year-old. So she, with some coercion from her mother, decided to give me up for adoption and went into foster care for just a couple of months and then was placed in a home. And then about a year later, there was a formal adoption process that happened with my adoptive family.
Oh, wow. So you might not even remember any of this, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I was just a baby. So this all happened within the first year of life. I had three different homes and 3 different families in that first year.
Oh, wow. I think that's pretty normal. I'm not super familiar with the adoption and, foster care process, but from what I've seen, it seems to be that kids can sometimes ping pong around for a while, right?
For sure. So I think, with my particular situation, my adoptive parents had been on a list for about 3.5 years.
Okay.
And so infants, newborns are pretty popular, which is why they were on a list for as long as they were. So that process was fairly quick, but it tends to be different when it's a situation where a child is older, or they're taken out of a home, or
right,
it's a different situation. So
okay, interesting. Well, yeah, that's it's fascinating to me. I'm sure it's fascinating to a lot of people who are listening as well. Now, it sounds like you've met your biological mother then.
I have, and that's a whole nother sort of long, very interesting story. And I can kind of just give you a high level overview of that. So
I don't want you to go too,
too deep. That's a whole nother topic, right? That's a whole nother
we can save that for off mic
conversation. So it's interesting. So when I was born, at that point in time, adoptions were all closed. And essentially how it works is that, the records are sealed. No one really gets to know anything. There's no exchange of information. My adoptive family knew absolutely nothing about my birth family or the situation or names or really kind of where I came from, and vice versa. So I always knew that I was adopted growing up. My parents were always very forthcoming of, talking about that. Again, there was no real information outside of that to share, and I always knew that at some point that I would have an interest and a desire to meet at least my birth mother.
Yeah.
So when I was in I believe it was 5th grade, my birth mother started contacting my adoptive parents through letters.
Oh, wow.
And they were obviously completely thrown off guard by that because, again,
did she have the records of who had adopted you?
She did, but there was no, my parents didn't have any information. My adoptive parents didn't have any information as to how that actually transpired. So they got a letter. They got a letter in the mail, essentially, from her, this woman claiming to be my birth mother and saying that she really wanted to be involved in my life and kind of explaining what her situation had been. And so my adoptive parents reached out to social services, and they didn't really know what to do with this. And social services said they had no idea how this birth mother would have gotten the information. Records are sealed until I'm 18. And at 18, that I should be the only one to be able to pull those records. So they decided to have some limited interaction just via letter with her and really just kind of push back on all of her requests, and didn't ever let me know that this was going on behind the scenes. So when I turned 18, they sat me down and they pulled out these letters and these photos and just kind of said, okay, you're 18 now. Here's all this stuff from, the past however many years it had been since I was in 5th grade. They had some correspondence back and forth. And so it's, your turn to make the decision now that you're of age if you want to meet her.
Wow. Were you upset that they'd kept this from you? Did you kind of freak out about it, or did you understand at the time?
I think at 18, I didn't really know how to feel. I was emotional about the whole thing just because, you grow up sort of always wondering, I was never really like anyone in my family. Obviously you don't look like anyone. And just even personality characteristics and likes and dislikes and things like that. You just always have those curiosities of wondering whether or not you're like anyone in your birth family. And so I finally had these letters and I had these pictures and I could put, a face and a name to who these people or who this person was. And so that was very emotional. I wasn't really upset. I was excited to actually meet her.
Sure. Yeah. It's like putting some of the pieces together.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. So look, I don't want to go too deep here,
far.
But
yeah. It's too far.
You can tell me stop whenever you want. But so okay, if you're good right there, then we can keep going. So
for sure.
Yeah, you basically transitioned from there into school, right? I think you got a master's in business. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. So my undergraduate was in interdisciplinary studies. So it was human development. It was kind of sociology type courses. And I went into the human resources field because I saw it as a way to help people and make decent money being, working in the business world. And so I went into that field and felt a little stuck after a couple of years and wasn't progressing kind of through the chain as quickly as I would like to. And so I went and got my master's degree in business, thinking that would kind of help propel me in my career and give me an edge that some other people didn't have. So I ended up, after all was said and done, spending almost 15 years in human resources. And it was a big letdown, to be honest. The whole thing was a big letdown.
Yeah.
And
this is a little sub theme in this podcast, by the way. I've talked to a lot of people who've started out in different fields, and it didn't live up to what they thought it was going to, and so they made the transition. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, for sure. So
you're not alone.
I'm sure I'm not, right? So I just always felt like I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Right.
Even though I had a master's degree and I had this career, it was never fulfilling, and went into it with really good intentions, again, just really wanting to help people. And
sure.
I saw it as a way to work in the business world and make a good living. And it turns out that people really dislike human resources.
Who would have thunk it, huh?
Yeah, right. So it really wasn't that much fun. You're the rule maker and the rule enforcer, and people, people don't get that.
Yeah, there's definitely a stigma attached.
Yeah, there's a stigma. And there are some really awful HR people. I've worked with a lot of them. So
sure.
So, there's a reputation, and to some extent, rightfully so. I've got some stories. Again,
I'm already seeing episode number 2 with Heather Prall.
Right. Yeah. So
if
you really want to delve in, I've got some goodies for you.
The dirt. I love it. All right. We will do it. So it's interesting. Thank you for sharing that, first of all. It's interesting, isn't it? Kind of the artistic path and almost like the human path. I've always been intrigued by the whole concept of getting older, but still feeling like a little kid,
Yes.
Being an adult, being in your 20s and 30s even, and still going like, I don't know what I want to do. Or when I grow up, I'm going to be this, or maybe what you want to do and the pieces are just not fitting together. And it just makes you feel like your life has not started yet.
Exactly.
For me, it was one of those things where I knew I wanted to be an artist the whole time, and I was doing it. I just wasn't making enough money at it. And so I had this existential crisis of, should I do the fallback thing, after a decade of not pursuing anything else? Should I try to pursue another path? And I just had this existential crisis and dilemma the whole time. And it gave me a lot of anxiety and depression trying to work through that. So I think a lot of people, this will resonate with them. So, okay, so let's take it to the place where obviously you pull open the shirt and you got the superhero, from underneath in the Cape. When did you decide to jump off the cliff?
Yeah, it was a bit of a forced push off the cliff more than a
Okay.
jump off the cliff, which I'm completely okay with. I was
Sometimes
completely
we need a
okay with
little
it.
push.
Yeah. And it was really, to be honest, so my last job in HR was one of the best places that I had ever been. And I had a fantastic boss, and I was able to work from home, and I had all this flexibility, and our daughter was about a year old, and the company just wasn't doing well. It was a small startup. And there were only two of us in HR, and we had started laying folks off about a year prior to essentially us laying ourselves off from HR. We were the last people to go. So we knew that it was coming. It was very much planned. And I was okay with it. I knew that when we had started having kids, that I wanted to be at home anyway. So it was really just sort of letting it play out. And then when it happened, figuring out from there what the path was.
Right.
And so the path initially started with taking some time to just get out, travel, get out of the routine. We sold our house. My husband didn't really, again, he was still kind of trying to figure out what he wanted to be when he grew up. And he had a really good job, had a really successful career, but was feeling very burnt out with where he was at. And so we took off, and we bought a travel trailer and just set out a course to take a tour of the western part of the United States, and with our 1.5-year-old daughter and our cats. And so, every few days we were in a new place, and it was fantastic.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting. So how far did you get?
Yeah, we did basically a big loop from Colorado up to Canada, and then down the coast of California, and then Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and then back home. So it was 9 months.
Nice.
Which, sounds like a long time, but it flies by when you're not working and you're just out kind of discovering and traveling and having fun.
I'm sure. So was this kind of a plan? Like, we have this amount of money set aside for this. When the money runs out, we'll come back and get back into it?
No, it came down to my husband had taken a sabbatical from his job. And so it was figuring out if he wanted to go back or not. And he decided to go back after the 9 months. So that's essentially what brought us back home in that 9-month time frame. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's good, at least, that he was able to go back and he was able to take a sabbatical. That's very nice.
For sure.
And I'm sure for you, like you were saying, how you knew it was coming, you knew you were going to be on the chopping block at some point.
Yeah.
Was this something that kind of enabled you to put some things in place to, figure out how you could continue working from home as an artist? Did you start kind of thinking about that at the time, or was this post or during the RV traveling?
Yeah, it really actually wasn't until we got back home. There was no plan, no agenda. I was just kind of enjoying, again, not having to be in a routine and having, this break and hitting the reset button. So that didn't transpire until we were back home. One of our last stops on our RV tour, our trip, was in Santa Fe, and we saw so many just cool things, obviously, along the way, and just a lot of artistic things that are out there, just sculptures and art galleries. And
Santa Fe is a big art culture.
That wrapped our trip, and that was incredible. I had never been to the art galleries there and the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. It was incredible, and we bought some artworks while we were there.
Awesome.
We found this fantastic artist, and we fell in love with her work in a gallery, and ended up getting to meet with her at a coffee shop and purchase a couple pieces from her. And while I was there, I was in one of the galleries, and Bruce really fell in love with this artist and his artwork. And it was unlike anything I had ever seen before in oil paintings. Mm-hmm. And the work was it was phenomenal, but his work was like $60,000. And So that wasn't something that was really attainable at that point. We did buy some artwork, but it wasn't $60,000 artwork.
Yeah, right.
So that actually was what started my thought process. It was just, again, having some time and just thinking about how I could be creative again and kind of get back into things. And then once we got back home and we were reestablishing ourselves, I'm home with a little one, and I have a hard time just kind of sitting around. That's just not really my deal. So my husband was back at work, and I'm home with at that point she was 2, almost 2.5. And when we came back, we went through kind of an interesting journey with some fertility stuff. Before we left on our journey, we had our daughter, I mentioned, and she was an in vitro baby. So we discovered when we wanted to have kids that we needed to go through the process of in vitro. And through that process, we obviously had our daughter, which was incredible, but we also lost another baby along the way. And when we came back, we had a frozen embryo that had been sitting, waiting for us for a few years. And so we decided to go through that process, and we went through another miscarriage. And then the doctor said there was nothing more that we could do to continue the process. So that was really kind of the end of that journey.
Oh, wow.
And I was really struggling with that. That was really tough.
So you said this was the second you wanted to have a second?
Yeah. So we wanted to have a second, and then, I went through a second miscarriage, and then they essentially told us that was the end of our fertility journey, and there was nothing more that they could do for us to continue the process.
That's got to be a very tough process, and also an expensive process too, right?
Oh yeah, incredibly so. Yeah, it's something that no one can really ever prepare you for, and it was probably actually a good thing, because I think had I known what I was in for, it might have made it even more difficult.
Right? But you're like, well, maybe not.
Yeah, when the cooler shows up and you have a pile of needles and. And 6 months worth of medications, and then you figure out that you have to actually do all these injections yourself.
Right.
It's a little overwhelming. I'll just say that.
So, that's intense.
Yeah, it's incredibly intense. And we weren't my husband didn't really want to tell a lot of people that we were going through this, so we kind of kept it private. We, our parents knew, but a lot of people didn't really know that we were going through this. Yeah. So that sometimes makes it tougher too, when you're going through that and you can't really talk about it.
You can't share with anybody. You can't vent. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
And that's another theme of what you're saying, the whole, just having the miscarriage too. I mean, I know a lot of people, I know a lot of close friends who've had miscarriages. I know my mom did. I know a lot of women do. And I hear it's obviously a devastating process. But one thing I keep hearing is that it's not talked about that much. And women don't share it with each other that much. There seems to be a little bit of a push now to kind of talk about this. And I think that's good, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that. I have some accounts I follow online. One of them is the IVF Warrior, and it's fantastic for anyone who's going through any type of infertility battle. I highly recommend following them. But
the IVF Warrior?
Yeah, the IVF Warrior. But there's a big push because, like you said, a lot of people really keep it private. And I don't know why that is. It's interesting because, going through the process, again, I think, like for my husband didn't really want to share it. I think because he didn't want the pressure of people asking, and then if it didn't work out, having to sort of explain that. I think for him, in his mind, it was easier to just not have to even have the conversation.
Right. We'll share the news when we have something to share.
Exactly. And so that was sort of his perspective, which I get. But then I think there are other people that, in order to sort of process it, they really need to talk about it. And that's more my mentality, is that it's easier for me to talk about it. And I feel like, I I still get questions. I mean, that's been 5 years ago. And, you know, we still have people that ask us constantly or ask me constantly that, you know, oh, when are you going to have your next baby? Or, you know, when is your daughter going to have a sibling? So people are constantly asking that question. And I'm just really upfront about like, hey, this is our situation. And so, that's that.
I think that's good. And I've heard, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a woman, but I like to kind of keep abreast of these types of scenarios. And I've heard there's a lot of shame that comes along with it, which seems a little bizarre because it's, you know, it's natural. It's not something that you have any control over. But I hear there is almost like an element of shame, and that keeps some women from sharing it.
I think so. I think, you know, a lot of women just feel incredibly betrayed by their bodies, and, you know, or they wonder if they did something, you know, was it, you know, this, or was it that, or maybe I caused this. And so, you know, there's maybe a sense of guilt. Thankfully, I haven't had that.
Yeah. Oh, good.
So, I mean, I still have grief around, you know, having gone through it, but I don't feel like it was something that was in my control either.
Sure. It's funny in those situations too. It's like, why did the men never get any blame? You know, like what maybe it was something that the man did. I think it's funny. It's obviously probably neither, but I always find it funny when women get pregnant. It's like, well, now you need to take care of yourself and you need to watch what you eat. It's like, well, I'm sorry, but I think the guy needs to too. Like, if you're going to plan for this, let's start working on our diets together. Let's get in good shape. Let's, you know, whatever we're putting in our body is going to come out. So I just think that's funny that there's no emphasis put on the male ever. It's like, you just keep doing whatever you're doing, you know, keep drinking and smoking and doing some blow, and then it's fine.
No, it is interesting. Well, and it becomes even more interesting when you go through this infertility process, because it's, you know, the guy goes in and has one test done, and for the woman, it's test after test after test. I mean, it never ends. And then, you know, and then you decide that you're going to go through. So that's that's just the diagnosis process. And then you make the decision to go through the process, you know, and there are multiple things that you can do in this process. You know, there's IVF isn't the only option. There are other options that you can try. And I mean, it's really all on the woman. The medications, the blood draws, all of it, the ultrasounds, the whole thing. And so I don't know, maybe that's where it comes from. And so, I mean, I guess if anything, it's really just, you know, that other person being a support, like you said, being a support in, okay, let's both be healthy. Let's both, you know, if there's something we're doing that we shouldn't be doing, if we're smoking or we're doing this, I'm going to stop smoking, or I'm going to stop drinking, or whatever it is. And just being a support system.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, thank you so much for sharing that too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm sorry to hear that as well. But I would like to shift gears a little bit to, well, first of all, when you said that you stopped in Santa Fe and you got the kind of whatever the impetus for your art career, was it just that you were seeing this art and being exposed to it, or did you also kind of see that it was possible to make some money doing it?
It was really just piquing my interest to start painting again. And then really the impetus was going through what we just talked about. You know, we came home and the first thing that we did was we transferred that frozen embryo that we had, and it didn't work out. And I was just in a really weird place, you know, just emotionally, and not really having a support system to have a, you know, kind of an outlet to that. And so that's where painting came in. And that was the impetus for me it was really a distraction for me.
Distraction. And I'm sure you were probably working through some of those emotions too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That's nice that art can be cathartic as well.
Yeah.
I know I've worked through a lot of past weird trauma through my art, and it's helped me to kind of get out on the other side. So I'm sure it's pretty similar.
Yeah. So that was fantastic. That kind of all happened. Again, there was It just happened. It wasn't even that there was a thought process at that point that, oh, I'm going to, make the decision to do this and this is going to be a career. There was none of that. It was really just, I had seen some things that I had been inspired by, and I was going through this tough time and I needed an outlet. And I went to the art store and I bought some stuff and came home and just started painting. And it really honestly kind of became an addiction for me.
Nice.
And it was like, the more that I did it, the more that I wanted to do it. And I just, and it was all I thought about. And so,
Heather, she's on the brush again.
Yeah, I'm on the brush again. So it took off from there and just has evolved over, the last several years. So I would say it was more of, again, it was an outlet. I would describe it as more of a hobby at that time. And then I started to do it. We ended up building a house after we figured out kind of coming back and wanting to reestablish ourselves here. I built a house and had a bunch of empty walls. And so I decided that I wanted to fill the walls with my artwork. And my husband does photography. So we just filled our house with art and photography. And then people started coming over to the house, neighbors and friends and family, and inquiring about the artwork that was hanging on the walls, and had a few folks ask me to commission some work, and was making some money that way. That was
I love
fantastic.
it that it's a very organic,
Exactly.
transition into the art world. I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was really a year ago this past summer when our daughter was getting ready to go full-time in school in first grade. And my husband and I were talking about, what I wanted my days to look like, having a little bit more free time. And I did not want to go back to the HR world. I knew that for sure.
Right.
So kind of trying to figure out, where do I want to go from here? And what's interesting is I had two paths kind of set out. And one was, and we can get into this a little bit more, but my psychic medium, Reiki healing, kind of life coaching side. Yeah. So
you didn't tell me about this.
Yeah. So
by the way, is this could be the perfect time. We're at that cutoff period. Let me stop it and save it, and then we'll get back to this. So give me 1 second here.
Yep.
All right. We're back after a little mini break, and you were talking about two paths, and I think you said Reiki and energy healing, right?
Yeah, so I have a background in psychic medium. I'm also a master Reiki healer, and I have a certification in life coaching as well. So those are things that, again, it's never something that I've done as a career, but they're things that I've always enjoyed just kind of doing for fun with friends and family on the side. And so, there were two paths that I was contemplating, and that was one. And
if you were here, I would be like hitting you up for that all the time.
Yeah.
Heather, I'm having some
pain. No, it's incredible. It's phenomenal. And what's really cool about the Reiki medium piece is that I've just, not even intentionally, but been able to tie in the psychic medium with the Reiki healing. So I will have sessions where I'll be giving someone a Reiki healing, and then their grandmother who's passed away will come through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'll do a reading. So
wow.
It's really interesting and sort of unique and fun. And so there was that path, or there was the artwork path. And, for the last couple of years, as far as my artwork has been concerned, I've just done really just commissions on command here and there. And I've done a couple of art shows, and was, kind of again, trying to figure out how I could do the art full time and then get the gallery popped up. So
you're doing my job for me.
Yeah, right.
I'm just going to sit back here, take a little nap.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. So get the gallery popped up, ironically, through.
But I do want to pause you for 1 sec. So you were doing art basically since about 2014. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. That's right.
Okay, cool. And I know one thing we did kind of breezed past earlier was you started painting in elementary school.
I did, yes.
So it wasn't like something just came out of nowhere. You did have
yeah. So I can tie that in too, or talk about that a little bit too.
But let's keep going for right now with Get the Gallery, because for anybody who's listened to the past episodes, we had Joe Clark on, the founder of Get the Gallery. I know you are also the co-founder, but if anybody's interested, go back and listen to that. So how did you meet Joe?
Yeah, well, interesting story. I have a woman that I worked with when I was in human resources who was working with Joe, and she went into his office one day and noticed this incredible piece of artwork on his wall and inquired about it. And he told her that he had started this art rental business just on the side, and I was an entrepreneur, and explained the business, and she brought my name up and connected the two of us, and we chatted, and I signed up as an artist with Get the Gallery. Yeah.
So you were an artist first?
I was an artist first.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now was he kicking around the idea at this point, or was it kind of being implemented at this point?
As far as bringing me in for
like when you say you came in as an artist, it was I'm assuming it was in the very initial stages then.
Yeah, it was July of 2019, which was a couple months after the soft launch of the company. Mm-hmm. So I came on, I believe it was June or July. I signed on as an artist, and we both live here in Denver, so we had some events and things that I had shown up to, and it was just really interested in the company and the business. And Joe is fantastic and to work with, and so the process from there, in terms of the evolution of my role with Get the Gallery, again, just really happened organically. We were, just chatting, and I have the business background, obviously, with my former career and my master's in business, and then now this foot in the art world and connections to other artists. And so it really seemed just like a great match for me to come in and help the company out with the curator role.
Yeah, I think some people might say, oh, that's serendipitous, but really it's like all the groundwork was kind of laid. Like I say that all the time with me. There's so many things that I was doing in the past, whether it be music or acting or all these things that I was doing, like jack of all trades type stuff. Yeah. And they've all come full circle for me at some point. Like even with the YouTube stuff that I'm doing now, all of my acting and interest in filmmaking and all that, it's all coming back, and it's never a waste. So it sounds like it's similar with all your experience with HR. It was like, it was there for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even when you were suffering through it, right?
Right. Yeah. So I can put it to good use now, finally.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what did that look like when you were talking about having him bring you on in a kind of a, I don't know, I guess like a chief curator capacity?
Yeah. So it was really bringing in more artists, growing the gallery, focusing on having a diversity of artworks, a diversity of artists. And, at that point, we had shifted some things in terms of, really wanting to focus more on local to local and having it be more of a farm to table while we were growing the business and growing our customer base. So recruiting.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah. So we're just, recruiting local folks through art shows or through Instagram, and really just building up that piece of the business.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And Joe was talking about that as well. And I think even during this period with the pandemic, it makes even more sense, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's really nice to hear that Get the Gallery has kind of been able to thrive during the pandemic. I know a lot of the art world, it's been kind of split with, people who are just used to showing in galleries and brick and mortar stuff. It's been a little different, but a business like Get the Gallery, or if you're able to transition into some sort of virtual or online medium, then the art world has actually been thriving in that respect. Sure. So it's cool to hear that Get the Gallery also has been. Are you ever there for some of the installations?
Yeah, so that's been really fun too. We have some corporate clients. We have a luxury high rise in downtown Denver
Mm-hmm.
that we just did a big art installation for. And we had three local artists and, curated a collection for them to hang in their hallways of their building.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, and when, showed up and one of the artists came in for her piece, which was really fun, and got to meet her in person. And then we actually hung all of the artworks. Joe and I spent the day and hung all the artworks. And so it was everything from start to finish, as far as, engaging the client, curating artworks, delivery, hanging, the whole deal.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I asked Joe this a little bit too, but when do you think, or do you think you guys are going to start transitioning into some other cities? And we were talking about on the podcast with Joe a little bit of cells in kind of different cities, like home bases in other cities. Is that a little ways off, you think, or pretty close?
That's a really great question. I don't think we really have a concrete answer for that. I think it depends on, we really want to focus on building a repeatable business channel before we take it to another city. And so we want to make sure that we have everything kind of locked in here before we take it outside here. So we're slow and growing right now. It's just, I think once we're at the point where we feel like we have a large enough customer base here and everything's locked in, then we'll take it to another city. So we'd love to do it sooner than later. And, our efforts right now are really just focusing on awareness of our brand, which is always a challenge, right? When you're a new business.
Or even a new artist.
Yeah. Letting people know that you exist.
Yeah, exactly. I exist.
Yeah. So that's the goal right now.
No, that makes complete sense. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure to kind of grow and scale faster, but I think it's smart that you're taking your time. And I know Joe has a lot of experience with other startups and in the corporate world. So good on you guys for taking your time with it. And I think it'll mean that your business is going to be more successful moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Well, that's awesome. We're going to shift a little bit back to you as an artist personally. I always ask people and artists what their superpower is, because I think of artists as like superheroes almost. But what I mean by that is when you're not feeling creative, when you're having some sort of block or whatever, maybe you're just depressed and you're not feeling like creating. Is there anything that you do, like a daily routine or some sort of habit you have that kind of sparks that creativity so you can get back in the studio and knock a painting out?
Yeah. So for me, really, our travel, and I talked a little bit about our adventures that we had with our travel trailer, and we've upgraded here in the last couple of years. We have a large fifth wheel now that's literally, it's a house on wheels. We have everything that we need. It's got, washer, dryer, our full kitchen, fireplace.
Oh, really? Fireplace.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, it's a home on wheels. And so we get out in that thing as much as we can. And it's been really amazing during this pandemic because, most people are stuck at home and that's it. And so we've been able to get out and travel and get outside. And
because it's like you can be stuck at home, but take your home with you.
Exactly. Well, we can continue to, we can work as long as we're somewhere that has internet. We can we can both continue to do work. And right now our daughter is doing remote school and she's in second grade. So really anywhere that we can go where we have connectivity, we can work and do school by day. And then in the evenings, we actually just got back from a trip. Last weekend, we were out for 4 weeks and just exploring Colorado and seeing the fall colors. And
I keep seeing your Instagram feed and going like, oh, Heather's here now. And Heather's here. Yep. How is she running this business and doing her art? And she's all over the place.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So, just getting out for a hike every afternoon and really getting outside and connecting with nature. And again, taking a break from kind of that routine.
I'm sure that feeds you and replenishes all the creativity.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
and also
just,
it seems like when you're traveling, I see you, actively going to places where there's murals,
for
and
sure.
I saw
Yep.
you painted what was it that you painted the other day? A desk that you were painting?
Oh, yeah. It's a piano.
Oh, a piano. That's what it was. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
kind of like
no,
a
a
desk
piano.
with musical keys.
Yeah. I had to think for a minute, but yeah, it was a piano. So yeah, that was on our trek. That's an interesting story too. We were on our way to lunch. Had parked our car and we were walking to a restaurant and just happened to be walking past the community center in this teeny tiny little mountain town. And there was a woman sitting outside and she had a bunch of paints, and it turned out that she was the art director for the community center, and this piano needed to be painted.
Oh,
And
wow.
she asked if we wanted to help do it, help paint the piano.
That's so funny. I'm like, in my mind, I'm seeing you just walking by, minding your own business, and she goes, "Hey, would you want to paint this piano?" How
That's
did you?
literally what, yeah, that's
That's,
literally what happened.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. That's so
So
cool. But
these things just show up. It's so, I mean, how perfect was that, right?
I know
That happened,
I'm seeing a theme here with you. And it's
right?
kind of like you put yourself out there, you put yourself into certain situations, and then it kind of organically evolves. These things kind of come.
Exactly.
That's great. I think
Yeah,
you're in the flow.
for sure.
So that's really cool. Okay, so getting out and traveling is something that kind of replenishes you and gets you creating again. What about do you have any daily routines that are interesting? Something that you do, and this doesn't even have to be for your art, but just to kind of
Yeah.
feed you as a person.
It's interesting. I'm not a big routine person.
Hmm.
So I feel like it's different. I don't really have a routine. It's kind of different just depending on how I'm feeling. And I think I try to get into routines. I try to get into, routines that are healthy, like working out every morning. And
Right.
so right now I'm on a workout kick, but
Nice. What does that look like?
yeah. Yeah. So thankfully, all of the workout equipment is here at home. So it's just, getting up every day. And
You
what's
have no
interesting is
excuse.
I have absolutely no excuse. I've got everything I need here in the workout room. But what I like about it is I actually get a lot of work done while I'm on the treadmill, which sounds weird, but
Yeah.
just posting on social media every morning while I'm on the treadmill instead of, sitting down. I feel like it's a good use of my time while I'm, updating social media for Get the Gallery and for my own personal art business, my Heather Prall art business. I can do all that while I'm on the treadmill. And that can be a bit time consuming just when you're posting across, 4 different platforms every day.
Oh yeah.
And you're doing it for your personal business and then also for Get the Gallery. That can eat up 45 minutes to an hour
Oh
every
yeah.
morning. And
I
so
know.
I jump on the treadmill and I do it all while I'm on the treadmill.
Multitasking.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love it. No, and also it probably feeds into you kind of posting in a positive state of mind too, because you've got the endorphins flowing, you've got the oxygen
Yeah.
coming into the system. Because I find that if you're just going on to post, depending on your mood, if you're depressed or whatever, it will affect
Oh,
the
for
way you
sure.
post. So that's kind of a good little tip there for people.
Yeah.
Get on your treadmill
Get
during
on your,
social media
yep.
time.
Yeah, get on your treadmill and get your posts done, and at least you're doing something productive, even if you're just
Yes.
scrolling, and liking and interacting with your social media feeds. It's a
Yeah.
way to be productive while you're doing that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's important. I mean, you have to interact. You have to kind of reciprocate. People aren't gonna, always come back to your feed if you're not ever showing them any interest. Sometimes you have a bunch of people who comment all the time, and if you're
Yeah.
never commenting back on their work, they're gonna be like, "Well, screw this person."
Right. Right. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So until you're super famous, and then you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about that anymore.
And they don't have
Uh,
to worry about anything. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know about anything, but social media at
Well, you
least, right?
certainly don't have to worry about your social media because people
Yeah,
will just follow you regardless.
yeah, exactly. That's very true. Okay, so what about this one? It seems to, I keep asking this question, even though a few of the last people that I've had have kind of said that they don't really think about it this way. I still think it's an interesting question, but do you have any kind of failures in your life? Maybe you don't have to see it as a failure, but something that didn't work out, and in either in your art career or in life that kind of set you back, but also you ended up learning from it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I've had a lot of challenges, I would say, in my life, just kind of all over the place. We talked about my career and just, I just really never felt like I fit in with what I was doing and the places that I worked at and the people. And so I don't know if I'd say that's a failure per se, but it was definitely something that was a challenge for me. And, I've had just along the way a lot of just challenging relationships, with people in my life that I think have pushed me to be better, do better. And then obviously the fertility journey, going through all of that and having, the 2 failed pregnancies, and then coming to the end and realizing that, I couldn't, there just wasn't a way for me to achieve being able to have a family in the way that I had wanted to. So there have been many, many challenges along the way that have pushed me to be better, to do better, to kind of, get myself into a different mindset.
Yeah. And almost like redefine.
Yeah. And so the other interesting thing for me too, is I am someone who, if you tell me I can't do something or that I shouldn't do something, I will revolt.
Yeah. A good trait to have when you're an artist.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of that along the way too. Just really, I feel like I've always sort of had people underestimate me. And I think some of that is due to the fact that I've always been more on the quiet, shy side. And growing up, I was incredibly introverted and, just didn't really use my voice. And, people interpreted that in many ways. There were people that thought I was shy. There were people that thought I was stuck up. There were people that thought all sorts of things. And so I think just
which are all their own projections upon you, by the way.
Yeah. And I just really never put myself out there, even in my career, just kind of, I mentioned that I struggled to kind of get to that next level. And there were a lot of times where just insecurities and feeling like, my voice either wouldn't be heard or wouldn't be important. I held back in a lot of ways. And so people would underestimate sort of my powers, my superpowers. And then I still to this day, things have definitely evolved for me over time. And I would say I'm the most extroverted and vocal that I've ever been in my entire life, which is fantastic. I feel like I've finally come to a place where I'm comfortable with myself and I don't really care. If people don't like an idea or don't like something about me, and so it's a good place to be. But for a long time I really struggled with so many things in terms of just having a voice, and still to this day I have people who've known me my whole life that say, oh, wow, you're doing that? That doesn't sound like you, or that doesn't sound like something you would do. Or they discover that, I do this or I do that. And, oh, I never knew that you did that. So it's really interesting. And I think I continue to surprise people just because there just is a lot that I've never really talked about or put out there. And so people don't really have an understanding of some of the challenges or some of the things that I've gone through in my life until now.
That's beautiful. And I think it comes with age a little bit, but also you've had such an interesting life and a set of challenges, but you get to a certain stage where it's like, you kind of realize that what am I waiting for? Or what am I, why am I holding back?
Holding back. Exactly.
Right. You're not hurting anybody but yourself. Right. I think for me, one of the biggest things that I've discovered is I just won't waste my time anymore.
Right.
I used to waste my time. I was a big people pleaser.
Yep.
And I had a lot of different relationships that kind of hung on because of that. And now it's just you know what? Some of it's just practical, but also it's just, I just have started to realize what's really, truly important in my life. And now I just go, nope, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're kind of on a similar path right now.
Yeah, and it's been again, it's just kind of been I feel like that's been a slow transition for me, but I'll tell you that in this last year, that's definitely been the theme for me for 2020. And I know that obviously we're all dealing with, COVID and the challenges around
Sure.
that. But this year, with, we've had some other things going on with my husband's health, and it's been an exhausting year. So again, just,
Yes.
being in a place where I don't have the time or the energy to, like you said, be a people pleaser. And I've spent a lot of my life being a people pleaser. And like you said, hanging on to relationships or certain things. And, I just don't have it in me
Yeah. Yeah.
anymore to do that. So,
Well, that's maturity, but it also sounds like for you, it's the same, maybe even more, more than myself, that it's practical.
yeah,
It's the only thing you can do. I mean, you only
right,
have so much time now, right? And so much
right.
energy.
Capacity. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
for
and I'm sorry,
sure.
I didn't want to bring it up either, but I'm sorry to hear about your husband, and I hope that he gets well soon, and
Yeah,
definitely will be
thank
thinking
you.
about you. Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, for sure. Well, so do you have any advice that you would give? Like, I know you've had a very interesting life. Is there any advice looking back you would give to young Heather?
Oh,
It can be
yeah.
about anything.
Oh, yeah. So much.
You're like, how long is your podcast?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, how much time do we have here? So,
Right.
yeah, and I think it really plays into a lot of what we've already talked about in terms of, just one of the regrets that I do have is not being more comfortable in having a voice and being more expressive and asking for the things that, that I've wanted, and really allowing sort of other people to, again, back to that people pleaser thing, right? Sort of allowing
Oh
other
yeah.
people I don't know, in some ways it's I look at that as allowing other people to have control versus,
Oh, definitely.
you know, having that control in my own hands. So,
Well, because people will take advantage of that.
oh,
I
for
started to
sure.
realize that I was attracting a certain type of person in my life. It
Exactly.
was like, oh, this
Exactly.
person's like, oh, this person's like this too. This person's like this. And it's just because, I don't know. I mean, I maybe it's just as simple. It doesn't have to be some sort of like nefarious thing. Maybe it's just as simple as different puzzle pieces. This type of
Right.
person needs this type of person to bounce off of, but it doesn't really work to our advantage at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah,
interrupted you, but
no.
keep going.
Yeah, no, and really just, sort of trusting in that intuitive process. I mean, if I could go back and do things over, I would have started this career a long time ago, and, really just kind of felt like I had to suffer through getting to this place to figuring out that it's okay to want to do something creative as a
Mhm.
full-time gig. And I don't think that I ever felt like that was an option when I was younger. And I've always been creative in many different ways, many different forms. But I don't think I ever felt like there was a way for me to do this and be successful. And part of
Right.
it was, just part of it was a confidence thing. Part of it was I didn't really know anyone else that was doing this. So really just following my gut.
Well, and
And
also you have all of society basically telling you, "Oh, you'll never make money doing this," right?
exactly,
Huge
exactly.
pressure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, those are a few tidbits that I would go back and share with my younger self.
Yeah, no, I like it. And thank you for sharing that. Also, it's interesting because I think that's another thing I've discovered over the years is some things that I had regrets about in the past. Now I kind of look back and go, you know what? It brought me to where I am. And I'm sure you have
Right.
a similar thing. Like, would you have gone down this path had you known earlier? Who knows? We
Yeah.
never know. Or would you be as, I don't know, would your art be as powerful as it is?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Or
it's
would
kind
you
of,
be as driven or
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Or as
exactly.
appreciative or,
Exactly. So now it's interesting coming to a place where you're almost thankful for the things, even the really tough things that have shaped us.
right.
Okay, moving forward, where would you like to see, or where do you see yourself in your art in like 5 years, or it doesn't even have to be 5 years, but do you have any specific goals?
Yeah, Yeah. And, I guess I don't really sit down ever and think about where do I want to be in 5 years, but I can say that I'd love to just really see this continue to evolve in whatever, way that, that I can continue to do this for a living, whether it's with Get the Gallery or, my personal art business. I would just love to see everything to continue evolving and just continue to enjoy the process.
Yes. Once you stop enjoying the process, something is out of balance.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. And, looking at your social media feed and knowing what little I know about you, you definitely see kind of an organic and positive energy in whatever you're doing, which I really love. So keep doing that. I think that's really valuable for people to see. So do you have anything that you feel like you want to talk about or plug, or something that we left out, something you think is important, or do you feel pretty good about where we are?
Yeah, I feel great about where we are, and just, really the only plug, I guess, would be social media feeds, Heather Prall Art so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then Get the Gallery is on all the same platforms. Get the Gallery. So pretty easy to find whatever social media platform you're on. And, always just appreciate the support and the following and the positivity.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you who aren't going to look in the show notes where I'm going to put all these links, it's HeatherPrall, correct?
Yep, you've got it.
Give it a goog, as Pete Holmes would say. You can find Heather. She's the first thing that pops up, which is easy to find. So you will not be disappointed. Love your work and love what Get the Gallery's doing. So thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time, and it was a great conversation, and look forward to continuing to work with you through Get the Gallery as well.
Yes, me too. And maybe we can do a round 2 and get into some nitty-gritty stuff next time.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Heather. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.